Good morning YouTubians, it's Kermit's Ghost. I am heading into my living room at the moment where I used to film to give it a little bit more of a festive feel. You can see the trees and the gifts there and stockings already up. It's 3 days to Christmas, so let me wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'm going to show some, not all, of my Christmas films, so here goes. Starts off with The Christmas Story from 1983. It's a story of a little boy called Ralphie Parker who, more than anything, wants a Red Ryder carbine action 200 shot range model air rifle from Santa. Everybody warns him, you'll shoot your eye out. This is set in the 40s. It's a lovely old-fashioned Christmas movie. And next we have Last Christmas from 2019 about a young, irresponsible woman called Kate who works as an elf in a Christmas shop in London. She finds love, but it's not what it seems. This is riddled with George Michael songs. So next is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation from 1989, which sees the Griswolds invite over the in-laws to celebrate Christmas and the 2 weeks leading up to it. This is a must-watch every single year. The next is Christmas with the Cranks from 2004, which sees Nora and Luther Crank planning a Caribbean cruise and avoiding Christmas, but family and neighbours get in the way. This, in my opinion, is an underrated festive film. And next is one of the best Christmas movies out there. It's Home Alone from 1990, which sees little Kevin McAllister accidentally being left behind on a family vacation, leaving him to defend his house from bungling burglars. This is also a must-watch. And of course we can't leave out the sequel, Home Alone 2 from 1992, which sees Kevin accidentally board the wrong flight and ending up in New York City, where he has to battle against the burglars from the first movie. So next is The Holiday from 2006, which sees two romantically jaded women, one from England, one from America, exchange houses over Christmas and accidentally find true love. So next is the original Miracle on 34th Street, which has Santa put on trial in New York City. This stars Edmund Gwenn as Santa and a very young Natalie Wood as Susan Walker, a little girl who is raised to be a non-believer. And the 1994 version with Lord Richard Attenborough as Santa, who's put on trial to prove he is a genuine article, and Mara Wilson as Susan Walker. Now, as remakes go, this is one of, if not the best. And next is Jingle All the Way from 1996. This has Arnold Schwarzenegger as a workaholic father who has forgotten to buy his son the must-have toy of the year, so he's on a mission to rectify his mistake on Christmas Eve. The next section of films are variations of A Christmas Carol, be they called Scrooge or A Christmas Carol, and I'm going to start off with this 1935 film with Sir Seymour Hicks as Ebenezer Scrooge and Claude Rains as Jacob Marley. Next we have this version, A Christmas Carol from 1938 with Reginald Owen as Ebenezer Scrooge and Leo G. Carroll as Jacob Marley. So I'm showing these in order that they were made. This one is from 1951 with Alistair Sim as Ebenezer Scrooge and Michael Hordern as Jacob Marley. This also includes the 1939 radio broadcast of the story with Lionel Barrymore as Ebenezer Scrooge. And the next version is Scrooge from 1970, which is a musical, and it has Albert Finney as Ebenezer Scrooge and Alec Guinness as Jacob Marley. So the next title is Mickey's Christmas Carol from 1983. This is a short one, just 26 minutes long. Has Scrooge McDuck voiced by Alan Young as Ebenezer Scrooge and Goofy voiced by Hal Smith and Haynes Schroll as Jacob Marley. The next one, A Christmas Carol from 1984 with George C. Scott as Ebenezer Scrooge and Frank Finney as Jacob Marley. So next is a more modern telling of the story, Scrooged from 1988 with Bill Murray as Frank Cross aka Ebenezer Scrooge and John Forsythe as Lou Hayward aka Jacob Marley. So next is most people's favourite, The Muppet Christmas Carol from 1992 with Sir Michael Caine as Ebenezer Scrooge and Waldorf and Statler as Jacob and Robert Marley, and this is narrated by Gonzo the Great as Charles Dickens. Next I'm going to sneak in a DVD in a custom Blu-ray case. It's from 1999 as Christmas Carol with Patrick Stewart as Ebenezer Scrooge and Bernard Lloyd as Jacob Marley. This is also a DVD in a custom Blu-ray cover. This is A Christmas Carol from 2004 with Kelsey Grammer as Ebenezer Scrooge and Jason Alexander as Jacob Marley. This is a musical. So this next version, A Christmas Carol from 2009, is in 3D and fully CGI'd. It has Jim Carrey as Ebenezer Scrooge and Gary Oldman as Jacob Marley. So the final Christmas Carol in the collection, well, I think so anyway, is from 2020 and has Michael Nunn and Simon Russell Beale jointly as Ebenezer Scrooge and Russell Maliphant and Andy Serkis jointly playing Jacob Marley. Next is Elf from 2003, starring Will Ferrell as Buddy the Elf, a child who wanders into Santa's bag and is taken to Santa's workshop and raised as an elf, but he becomes an adult and goes looking for his father who works in New York and is on the naughty list. Next is Office Christmas Party from 2016. A Chicago-based company needs to land an important client, so they put on a massive party, but it soon gets out of hand. This stars Jennifer Aniston, Jason Bateman and TJ Miller. So next is Krampus from 2015. A young boy called Max has lost his Christmas spirit when their family do nothing but argue amongst themselves, so he accidentally summons up a demonic creature who punishes the non-believers. So the family have to put their differences aside and fight together in order to survive. Next is The Santa Claus from 1994, which sees Santa fall to his death from Scott Calvin's house, making him responsible for taking over the role of Saint Nick. This actually sounds darker than it really is. Next is It's a Wonderful Life from 1946, which shows the life of George Bailey, played by James Stewart, and how important his life is to his friends and family. And this is shown to him by an angel called Clarence, and he gives George, during a pivotal point in his life, a glimpse of what life would have been like if he had not been born. The next one is The Shop Around the Corner, which was made in 1940, and it sees two sales assistants who despise each other at first, but then slowly fall in love through the art of letter writing and then face to face. This was later remade as You Got Mail, and this version stars James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan. Next is Nativity 1, 2 and 3 from 2009, 12 and 18, which stars Mark Wootton and Jason Watkins throughout. First one is the best by far. So next is a controversial choice. It's Die Hard from 1988, set during a Christmas party at the Nakatomi Plaza in LA, with a New York detective called John McClane going to see his estranged wife Holly during a Christmas party, whilst the building is under siege from a terrorist group trying to steal $640 million. Next is Get Santa from 2014. Santa crash lands in London and has little choice but to ask a man called Steve Anderson, who is fresh out of prison, to help him. Santa gets himself locked up and Steve and his son Tom has to find Santa's reindeer in the sleigh and break him out. So next is How the Grinch Stole Christmas from the year 2000, and the Grinch is a green, smelly, disgusting creature who lives atop a mountain and hates Christmas, and to his annoyance the people of Whoville in the valley below adore the festive build-up and the day itself. So next is Family Man from the year 2000. This stars Nick Cage as Jack and Tia Leone as Kate. This is a very loose remake of It's a Wonderful Life in reverse. Nick is shown a glimpse of what he's missing in life, namely a wife and children and suburban life. The next film is Deck the Halls from 2006, and this sees a man called Buddy, played by Danny DeVito, wanting his Christmas lights on his house to be seen from space, much to the annoyance of his neighbour Steve, played by Matthew Broderick. Next is Merry Christmas from 2005. Now this is a story based on actual events surrounding the Christmas truce of 1914, told through the British, French and German soldiers' points of view. The moment they start singing Silent Night and climbing out the trenches will give you goosebumps every single time. Next is Just Friends from 2005. This has Ryan Reynolds as a successful record producer who is in charge of looking after his top client Samantha. His flight gets redirected after a fire on board to New Jersey, which happens to be his hometown, and it becomes an opportunity for him to reconnect with his childhood crush. So next is White Christmas from 1954. Now after leaving the army, two friends start a song and dance act, and later they meet two women who also have a song and dance act, and both pairs travel to a lodge in Vermont, which the soldier's former commander owns. Whilst there, they put on a Christmas show. Next is Love Actually from 2003. It's a film with many actors and actresses telling individual short stories that intertwine and amalgamate leading up to Christmas, often telling of their troubled love or new relationships. Next is Arthur Christmas from 2003. This animated film shows you how Santa manages to solve all those issues of delivering presents, as well as show you retired Santas and new up-and-coming Santas. It's got a great voice cast including Jim Broadbent, Hugh Laurie, Bill Nye and James McAvoy. Next is The Night Before from 2015, stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Seth Rogen and Anthony Mackie as three friends who celebrate Christmas Eve every year together, but Seth's character is about to become a father, so the gang plan to put everything into one last party as it will be their last together. Next is a musical called Spirited from this year. This is an unofficial release, and it's a story how the four spirits of Christmas continue their work of turning a miserable miser into a fun-loving, giving person. So next is Holiday Inn from 1942. It's a musical starring Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire, and of course the music is by Irving Berlin. This was the first time the song White Christmas was used. Next is Christmas in Connecticut from 1945. This romantic comedy sees a female journalist pretending to be a housewife to fool her boss, who invited himself to a Christmas dinner. Next is Bad Moms Christmas from 2017. This comedy has Amy, Kiki and Carla's mothers turn up for Christmas and try to take over. Don't worry, all works out in the end. Next is a festive movie made for TV from 2011 called A Christmas Kiss. Obviously it's a romantic film, and this is one of those better made for TV movies. So next is Bad Santa, a black comedy from 2003. Wow, it's almost 20 years old now. It stars Billy Bob Thornton and Tony Cox as a pair of thieves working as a Santa and an elf who rob shopping malls at night. And here is a sequel, Bad Santa 2, made 13 years later in 2016. This has the pair of thieves reprise their role, this time to rob a Chicago charity on Christmas Eve. Brett Kelly also returns from the first film as Thurman Merman. Next is Almost Christmas, also known as All Is Bright. This is about two old friends, one fresh out of prison, who start selling Christmas trees out of a car park in New York. This is not very festive at all, but it does have a great cast. Next is A Charlie Brown Christmas from 1965. In this, Charlie is convinced by Lucy to direct the neighbourhood Christmas party. Peter Robbins provides the voice of Charlie Brown, who sadly passed away in January this year. Next is Four Christmases from 2008. This is about a couple who visit all four divorced parents on Christmas Day. This comedy has an impressive cast but often gets overlooked. Fred Claus next from 2007, and explores the idea of what if Santa had a brother who was seldom nice enough to get on the nice list. Obviously he's not naughty for the conclusion of the film. And next is Gremlins from 1984. Now a father brings his son a gift on Christmas Eve with 3 warnings. Don't feed him after midnight, no bright lights, and don't get him wet. He breaks all 3 within a day to dire consequences. Next is The Holly and the Ivy from 1952. A family arrive home for Christmas Eve, but to an atmosphere that is tense as they have an axe to grind with their father, who happens to be the local clergyman. Next is a set of Christmas specials. You've got a Merry Madagascar, a Madagascar Penguins in a Christmas Caper, Shrek the Halls, a Donkey's Christmas Spectacular, and a Gift of the Night Fury. Next is Noel from 2004, and this festive drama sees 5 New Yorkers come together on Christmas Eve seeking a miracle. This stars Penelope Cruz, Paul Walker, Susan Sarandon, Alan Arkin, and Robin Williams. So next is New York Christmas Eve from 2015, and it's one of those intertwining stories of strangers who cross paths during the day. This one stars Patrick Stewart and John Heder. The Man Who Invented Christmas is a true-ish story of how Charles Dickens became inspired to write A Christmas Carol and how he set about doing it. This is an absolutely wonderful Christmas movie. So next is the black comedy Merry Friggin' Christmas from 2014. It's about a dad who forgets to bring the gifts with him at Christmas, so he has to make an 8-hour round trip in order to get them in time for Christmas morning. And here we have Surviving Christmas from 2004, about a very rich executive who hires a family who now live in his childhood home to pose as his own kith and kin. And next we have the musical from 1944, Meet Me in St. Louis, which is about 4 sisters growing up in the early 1900s, and it features Judy Garland singing the song Have Yourself a Very Merry Christmas. Fat Man next from 2020, and this has Mel Gibson as a gruff Santa Claus who has to deal with a dwindling budget and a hitman trying to take him out. This is an absolute blast. Next and last is Santa Claus the Movie. This film shows the origin of Santa Claus as well as an elf called Patch who heads to New York to work for a shoddy toy company after his plans to make better toys at the North Pole backfires on him.